Hello, kia ora, and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with artists from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Mandy Jakic. Hi, thank you for joining me. Welcome back. This is episode 142. I'm speaking with Tocker. Di is a sculptural glass artist living and working from her purpose-built studio in Cambridge in the Waikato. Di maintains a structured approach to her art practice and business. She provides work for 5 galleries throughout New Zealand and undertakes commissions for private residencies and commercial projects. Di loves to connect with people who enjoy her glasswork and welcomes visitors to her studio by appointment. In this episode, we chat about how Di discovered her love for working with glass and the ideas and narratives her work conveys. Di very generously shares her complex glass casting process and guides us through her glass casting from design and polishing to managing colour and creating spaces and curves in her work. Di talks about studying glass sculpture in Australia and how that contributed to the artist she is today, and why she likes to include figures in her work. She shares her approach to the business side of being an artist, how she chooses galleries to work with, her love of making notes and keeping journals. This is such an insightful episode. I learned so much. Di has an inspiring approach to life as an artist. Her journey is fascinating, and she has so many great tips for creatives. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, Di.
Hi, Mandy.
Welcome to the Creative Matters podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for coming all the way to Muriwai from Cambridge.
It's beautiful to be here looking out at the Nikos. It's absolutely gorgeous.
And you're making a weekend of it, catching up with some friends. You've been to Kumeu Arts Gallery to buy one of my rings.
Yes, I have.
Thank you. And to see my group show, I guess. You saw that too?
I did.
Yeah.
It's an awesome concept. I love that idea of taking another artist's work and just being inspired by it.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept. And it's such a nice way for an artist to work, to have a different sort of starting point.
Yeah, and also a connection with an artist that's closer to home rather than, an icon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's been a fun show to be involved with. That goes on to the 21st of September. Anyway, more about you. I am so thrilled to meet you. I've been following you for a long time and have been quite fascinated with your practice. It's really beautiful work that you make. So looking forward to hearing how it all got started. So can you take us back to little girl Di?
Little girl Di was little girl Diana. Funnily enough, there's a random one, but I haven't been Diana since I was about 12. So I was a child that grew up in the 70s with a solo parent family. So my mum was pretty busy working full time, and I just think we just got on with making stuff, doing stuff. We had time to be bored, which I think is fantastic. And probably one of my earliest memories is the school holidays are looming and day one, and I'd go, I'm bored. And Mum would say, write a list of everything you could possibly do. And unbeknown to us, we'd just created a to-do list for the whole holidays. And we'd refer to that list, and on that would be lots of creative stuff. And so we just did things and made things. But I guess the art really stuck at high school. I wasn't good. I'll be straight up with you. So I did practical art in my 5th form year, which what's that, year 11, and scraped by with 52% in School C art. But it never deterred me. I literally really was a bit of a lazy kid, and so it was enough as what will get me through will get me through. And then the following year I returned back to school, and it was the first year of 6th form certificate. So there were no exams at the end of the year, and there was just internal marks all the way along. And I had amazing support from my mum to say, do whatever you want to do for school subjects. So I did 5 art subjects and English because I had to.
Wow.
Yeah, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But then I still kind of flunked. So those art subjects are quite important because I do still refer to those even now. So I did practical art, which was drawing and painting. I did graphic design. I did ceramics. I did photography. And I did jewellery making and design. So
what school did you go to, Dale? That's amazing.
I know. So I went to Tauranga Girls College, and that's where I grew up and went right through the school system there. But I wasn't that good with keeping up with all the little grades I had to going along. So it came to sort of the August, September school holidays, and I realised that if I didn't stop going out, I was going to fail. So it was like, I better get a job. So I left school and became a photolithographer. And really, I left school and did that simply because there was an apprenticeship going local to me and it was creative. It involved a paintbrush. So if you don't know what a photolithographer does, that's okay because the job doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
So it was the job that the Apple Macintosh computers came along and took away. Pretty much. So we used to work in pre-press for printing. So we would scan all the images and assemble the type to then the end product was the 4 printing films that made the plates that went on an offset printing press for glossy brochures and it was an amazing job. So now where you Photoshop someone and you use a green screen, back then we would hand paint around someone's hair or use a scalpel and a knife and do that sort of thing. So it was a very good hand skills job. And I became very good at it and also it made a great amount of money. So that was pretty cool. So I finished my apprenticeship in 20 and a week later I left for my big OE and didn't actually return home until 11 years later.
Well, that's a long OE.
Yeah, it was a long OE. But I did use that job to travel around the world and but very, very quickly, like within a 5-year period, the glamour of the job had completely gone. Computers had come in and taken over and what we were doing was fixing up the computer mistakes because we were quicker and that was it. So we became a plate maker, which was the worst job.
It wasn't very creative.
No, wasn't creative at all. So I very quickly realised that I had to get out of that in my mid-20s. But if we backtrack to the art subjects, and I was always trying something, and this was in the late 80s, and do you remember there was night classes at every high school?
Yeah.
And you could go and do basket weaving and ceramics and woodworking and anything you wanted to try. So I would pretty much sign up and do something every term.
And that's true. That has gone, hasn't it?
Although we might get to it later, I'm back at doing a night class,
Really?
which is kind of fun. So one of the night classes I went to was stained glass, and within half an hour I knew this was it. The switch flicked. Everything else went out. I bought all the tools. I got completely obsessed. I made ugly lampshades, leaky windows. And that was my thing. And I just would make them after work and play and teach myself and buy books. And, there was nothing online. There was no new YouTube. Yeah, and just ask questions. And even when I travelled overseas and went to live in the UK for a while, I took those tools.
Really?
Yeah.
And what was it, do you think, that captured you from the beginning?
I think it was the fact that it was a medium where you had all these different skills. So it really honed into those hand-making skills, the drawing side of it, the technical drawing, the lustrous magic of light coming through glass, was just a capture. And back then, LED light windows were cool.
Yeah. They might come back.
I actually think they will come back.
I'm sure they will.
Because they tend to follow after ceramics, and ceramics is having a massive heyday at the moment, But anyway, that aside. So that's how I got into glass, and I just kept that going. And I have just always done hobbies. And so, like I said, I went to the UK. I lived there for 3 years, and I actually was working full time, but the job that I had allowed for some spare days. And so I went to, I suppose, an equivalent of Polytechnic, and did a certificate in art and design just to keep myself busy for a couple of years. And I was the only mature student with all the school leavers. So that was quite interesting.
Yeah, that can be challenging, I imagine.
Yeah, and I suppose I would have been mid-20s then, so I wasn't that mature, but more mature than they were. And that was really good again, I got back in the photography dark rooms, and we did all sorts of modules, and I don't have any work from that. It didn't really amount to anything, but it gave me the chance to first ask myself a question: do I want to be in business as an artist? What could I do? And back then I was thinking about a stained glass lead lighting business.
And why did you feel like you had to go and study, just to learn more or to make connections?
Yeah, I just think it was because I liked learning. I'd always done it. And I was living in a strange country and didn't know people. So it was meeting people, although I didn't really meet the right kind of people. I probably bonded more with the teacher than the students. But that was fine. I enjoyed having some deadlines and some projects.
And devoted time to make.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had the spare room of this house that we rented, and I just trashed it. I can't believe I made LED light windows inside in a 2-up, 2-down house.
And were you thinking, when you were working with that medium, were you getting quite creative with your design? Were you making different objects and that?
No, I wasn't making objects. I was absolutely strictly all 2D. And apart from the little dabble that I'd done in ceramics at school, I didn't really do much 3D. And I was looking at the German stained glass makers, and I used to extend lead lines to do interesting detail and things like that. And that sort of became a bit of a signature.
And is that in like a window? It's within a frame, like a window, which
they were
put
actual
somewhere.
functional windows.
And could they be used as art objects as well?
Yeah, yep. And I have made them for that in the past. Yeah, so now I look back and I'd say they're pretty much all broken, because I really didn't know what I was doing, and some of the pieces would have been too big and things. Anyway, so then it was time to come back to this side of the world. I didn't quite go home. I went to Australia because it was like coming home but not really coming home. And I had a good friend based there. And Brisbane, we lived in Brisbane about 97, I think, about then. And I knew this was time to get out of the print industry. It's like I really had to make a shift because there were no good jobs. So I thought, what else can I do? I tried a few jobs and got nowhere because I didn't have any secretarial skills or anything like that. And I thought the only thing I know how to do is make stained glass windows, albeit a little bit bad. So I wrote a letter to every single lead lighting shop in Brisbane, and there were 52 at that time.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a crazy amount.
Yeah.
And someone locally, just a couple of kilometres away, said, I'll give you a job. Come in and have a trial. So it was a really small team, and I went in there and had a trial, and I was bad. It was terrible. But they said, we think you've got what it takes and we'll take you on. So that was a real boost. And then within 11 months, I had gone through every facet of the business. I learned how to manufacture quicker. I learned how to talk to the clients. I learned how to draw the windows. I learned how to glaze the windows. And then my husband and I decided to make the shift to Melbourne. And when we moved to Melbourne, I just said, I'm a stained glass artist. That's what I do. And those were the jobs that I sought out. And so I ended up as a chief designer for a large firm down there. And it was a great job. because I just drew all the windows and talked to the clients and selected all the colours and then handed it to the guys out the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you weren't thinking that you wanted to have a full-time art practice of your own at that point?
I'd already done one business arts course back in England alongside that art and design course. So I kind of knew how hard it would be. And at the time I was working for this outfit, I did try and do some moonlighting on the side and set up a side business. So I had those business tendencies. But the game changer came when one day I just opened up the Melbourne Age newspaper and saw an advertisement for a Bachelor of Fine Arts major glass and went, what? You can do a degree in glass? So I went home and I said to Mike, I want to go to university. And he's like, what? You've never spoken about university. And I said, yeah, but I didn't know you could do glass. So I pulled together a portfolio and went to see the tutors and got in.
Wow.
And so that was at Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. They don't have the glass course running anymore. It only had 2 intakes before they discovered it was too expensive a program to run. So I negotiated with my boss to work 2 days a week, and then I taught at night time for them, taught the night classes because we always had people coming in and learning. And so I did 2 12-hour days for them, and then I crammed my full-time degree into the other 3 days.
My goodness.
And commuted into the city from 45 minutes out. So it was a pretty full-on.
That would have been really full on, but a lovely combination of that kind of work with your study.
Yeah, and I needed to. I mean, Mike and I were newly married, just bought our first house. I had to find a way to negotiate this deal. I couldn't just go to union. So, yeah, it was a busy few years. It was pretty amazing, and I don't think I realised exactly what I was getting into. So the first year we spent going through all the different disciplines of glass, what you call cold working. So that's everything you can do to the glass outside of blowing it in the hot shop, really. So we worked with the kilns and we fused layers together. So that brought in my stained glass, that fitted with that. We made platters, we sandblasted, we learnt surface treatments, all those sorts of things. And then the final 2 years, we were supposed to go into the hot shop and then come out the other end being amazing glass blowers. There was only one problem. I hated glass blowing. I couldn't stand it. So as part of our modules, they gave us one workshop in casting. We were to make one piece. And I made that piece and I went, wow, I can carve wax. This is pretty good. I quite like the mould making. I like working in this way. And so I carried on and did another couple of pieces because it fascinated me. And then I knew that it just wasn't going to work out for me with the hot shop. So I went to the tutors and said, I don't want to major in blowing, I want to major in casting. And they were like, well, you can't because we don't have any tutors. And I said, well, I've paid my money. Get me a tutor.
Yeah, find one.
So they did. I was taught by the wonderful Helen Stokes. And look, Mandy, I had probably 9 hours tutorial a semester. Like I had 3 blocks of 3 hours. So there's a whole lot of casting that you can just beaver away and do by yourself. Creating the wax model. And so I would work with the sculpture tutors about the form and what I was doing. And then I would just milk Helen for what she was worth. When she came in, I was ready with an armload of questions.
Yeah.
And then she would help me hands-on create the moulds and get them into the kiln, and we would talk firings. And then the finishing side, I didn't really need her for because I could get that from the other glass tutors.
Yeah.
So it worked, and it also gave me a lot of freedom to work at my own pace in between. And that's what I probably like the most about casting, is that you can make a wax model, and if you're not 100% happy with it, it just sits on the shelf till you're ready to have another go at it months down the track. And sometimes work happens like that. Don't quite get it right the first time, and I just leave it in wax. And I made a rule very early on that you don't commit it to glass unless it's worthwhile because it was too expensive.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it, that they were so focused on the blowing side of glass.
they just hadn't even thought about it. But casting is so much bigger in New Zealand than it ever was and has been in Australia. And I think we've got Anne Robinson to thank for that. She's our pioneer of that. But I didn't know that at the time. I was completely green when I was at university as to what other artists were out there and who was doing what. And I certainly knew nothing of the New Zealand scene because I hadn't thought about an art practice here, let alone a glass practice. So that wasn't on my radar at all. The works that I make now do involve a lot of figures, most of the works. I have sort of a couple of streams, but they started way back then at university. And I had one really pivotal incident with my sculpture tutor, Don, that I think is worth talking about because it was such a small thing, but it made a massive difference. So unfortunately, for one whole semester, I had another elective that coincided with the time that Don visited the glass studio. So we conversed for a semester in notes on my table, and I would leave out my work, and then he would scribble something, and then I would work to that, and he would come back in a week, and this is how we worked. And I didn't get the things finished that I wanted to finish. So I was carving out these little figures and I was going for more of a Henry Moore finish. They were really highly rendered and shaped and curved and they took forever. But to get to that point, I'd start with a little block of wax and I'd roughly hack out a figure. So I had 5 of these little things. When I'm saying little, they're probably about as tall as my middle finger, sitting on my table. And I thought, oh, just leave them because that's it. That's all I've done. And then I get back and there's a note from Don and it's still in my sketchbook because it says, stop, look at what's going on. And I'm thinking, I haven't finished them. They're not done. But the light's coming in and it's catching all these facets of the hacking that I've done into the wax. And I've basically made these little cubist sculptural forms. Generic little figures. And it taught me that you don't have to overdo things, that less is more, that you can leave bits out and there's still a lot of language there. In fact, there's more language with what you leave behind and that you don't do. So that was a massive moment, and from that I started doing these faceted kind of pieces that I think really work well for cast glass. So, that's what I did.
That's interesting. And how did you get onto the figures in the beginning?
The things that interested me at that point were relationships and people. I met my husband and we married really quickly. And so we were kind of negotiating our relationship when we were married.
Yeah.
And still young and still wanting to do, well, we weren't that young, but and I was just really interested in relationships and how people related to each other and all of that sort of thing. So I was practicing yoga and I started doing these kind of yogic forms and they were like a bit cheesy, and like I said, overdone. And the people that interested me, the other artists, were Brancusi, Henry Moore, Barbara Hepworth. That was what I gravitated towards. So the figures just came natural. And the first thing that I ever cast was 3, it's like a blob, but it's actually 3 figures with their heads together. And that's me and my 2 brothers. And it just came naturally to do figures. Yeah.
And that was your sort of form of storytelling through the figure.
Yeah, absolutely. So so that's what I decided to focus on. And then in my last year of uni, I kind of realised the value of the setup we had there, and I knew how expensive kilns and things were, and I also didn't know what was going to happen for our lives after I finished uni, because we'd been talking about coming back to New Zealand. So I was like, I'm just going to make as much work as I can make. So I'd go in there at 7 in the morning and get home at 10 at night, and I'd just make. So I finished my degree with a whole exhibition in a box, pretty much. No one saw it.
Really? You didn't have an exhibition at the end of the...
We did have an exhibition, and I put 2 large works out, and I did get best in the class.
Did you?
Yes, so I superseded my 52%.
How amazing is that? I mean, that's a really interesting lesson or, message to younger people starting out in their careers. School isn't necessarily the judge of talent.
It's so not the judge of talent.
The school system, yeah.
And it's a system. And so was university. You just have to play the cards right. So here's a really funny story. When I did do the first semester of blowing glass, because they made me, I also topped that. And all my pieces were really awful, but the brief was make a matching paperweight, bowl and vase. But everybody else got carried away in the lolly shop and made all these different coloured things that didn't fit together. So I just simply made 3 of the same things, followed the brief, boom, done.
Yeah.
So that's just about following the brief, the system.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not...
Yeah, you sort of towed the line, so to speak.
But I definitely decided that while I had access to these kilns and I had, free run of the most amazing studio ever, and we had free... So I had to pay for my own glass, but I could use all the moulding material I wanted. So I just went crazy and just, like I said, made.
And that in itself would have really just been so valuable for your making.
Well, it was.
To make so much.
Yeah. Except I actually really did burn out, and I pretty much got my piece of paper, and we decided to move back to New Zealand. And then I had no glass or art contacts back here. And I fell back into working in a lead lighting job, because that was the reason we ended up coming back to New Zealand, because I pretty much got headhunted for a lead lighting position in Hamilton, which was the biggest distributor of glass and everything in the country. It did help that my cousin was the manager, and he said, well, if you're going to go and work anywhere, you better come here.
Were you actually kind of keen on, or were you thinking about staying glass at that point, or did you feel like you'd moved on from
I wanted to just get a job.
Yeah.
I actually saw that. I thought that being an artist, setting up a casting studio was just beyond me financially. I was like, that's just thousands and thousands of dollars. And I didn't know anybody with any gear. It's like, where do you even start getting all that stuff together? So it just seemed prohibitive. So I just put the stuff in a box and didn't even look at it for 5 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
So we came back, bought a house, set up life in Hamilton, had our girls, and I went back to work in between the 2 girls. But after the second one, I could just see that I was like, oh, you're just going to be ringing up for sick days. And I was like, this isn't going to work. But before I got to that point, because I was still teaching night classes at the lead lighting facility, and the job was fulfilling because I began writing programs for teaching adults and trained up people in our sister shop in Palmerston North how to teach these programs. So I was getting a lot of valuable information. And again went to study adult teacher training. Didn't finish that either.
Yeah. But you felt like
enough.
You felt like you needed
I just thought it would be good to have.
Yeah.
But it also did teach me enough to realise different learning styles. And, I got a lot of tips and stuff out of that. So in one of my classes, I taught this lady, Colleen. She came along to learn how to cut glass. And then she said to me at the end of class, oh, I see that you have done casting before. I'm a glass caster. And I was like, no way. Who does that? And she said, I've got a kiln in my garage and I actually do cast. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I didn't really see her for quite a while. And then I went along to an exhibition opening at the gardens, at the Hamilton Gardens. There was a sculpture symposium on where they go and, where they're working on site. So I went down there one evening, which wasn't far from home, and I banged into Colleen and she said, hey, I've been meaning to get in contact with you. Do you want to come round one night? Well, hang out and make some glass. So I was like, sure, okay. So I went home and said to Mike, I've met this lady and we might do something with glass. Well, that turned into an incredible relationship, and we're still firm friends now. But at that time, what we decided to do was Colleen had learnt her casting up here at Art Station. I'd learnt in Melbourne, and then she had another friend, John, who was a bronze caster, and he wanted to learn glass. So we got together in her garage every Thursday night for this informal night class. Here I go, back to night class again. And we'd rock up at 7 o'clock and not get out of there till midnight. We just had so much fun. There were no egos. We were sharing ways of doing things and just getting on with making some stuff. And
good.
Yeah, and it got all my stuff dragged out of the box and Colleen had learnt different ways and I'd learnt different ways and John had different techniques. So we played around in her garage for 6 months and then we had a little show. So that was pretty cool. And that was my very first exhibition.
And did you pull out some of your work that you'd made?
No, I just used the new work. But by that stage, I'd decided, this is it. I've got to give it a go. And I was like, how are we going to do this? But what was pretty good at that time was the government were doing the 20 hours free childcare. And I had 2 littlies that needed childcare. So really, it didn't cost me anything to go to work. It was such a fantastic opportunity. And Colleen said to me, why don't you come and work in my garage in the day? Why don't you, if you can put the kids in daycare, come and do that. So we struck up this cool arrangement where for every day I used her studio, I would chalk up on the board 1 hour of labour that I would give to her. And so this went on for 4 years. And so Colleen used to make large outdoor glass sculptures, and that was amazing for me to be around. She's 23 years my senior, by the way. So people say, oh, was she kind of like your mentor? But it wasn't. It was because we'd both come to glass as equals almost. It wasn't like that, except for she'd been in business as a landscape designer for a long time. So she helped me see that way of being a business, and she already had artwork out there in galleries, and she ended up having work acquisitioned by the Friends of the Botanical Gardens and the Waikato Museum, and so we had this awesome relationship. So I would just chalk up this time and I'd either help her in the garden or I'd help her go on a road trip and we'd install sculptures, or I had other skills like using the diamond saw that she didn't do, so I would do that for her. So it was really cool. But we worked together, but we worked on our own work.
Yeah.
But we'd go off and have an hour for lunch on her deck looking out over the gully, and we'd talk art every day, all day. How
incredible.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is very, very cool. And that would have been just so supportive.
It was. That's what it was. And she needed me as much as I needed her.
Yeah.
It was just such a cool relationship. But then it got to a point where I was starting to grow and I was gaining clients, and clients needed to come and see me somewhere, and I didn't really have anywhere. So that was getting a little awkward. I mean, she was so generous. She let me even start teaching adult workshops in her space. I mean, it's a big deal. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the same time, I still would kind of do my wax work at home, and then I'd go and do the moulding and the kiln firing and stuff with her. But, yeah, we could fill up a kiln together of both work.
Which is a good way to work as well.
Oh.
So you can actually fill the kiln and make it.
Yeah, or we'd have a moulding day and share the load to get each other's work done. Yeah, it was really cool. And nut out problems, because glass casting is just one technical problem after another. Yeah, you literally are problem solving all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine. We can talk more about the process, because I find that really fascinating, the process for glass casting. But so you went from there. Did you then decide, okay, I actually do need my own space?
Yeah, I decided I needed my own space to take the business to the next level. I'd already, at that point, I wasn't in good galleries or anything like that. So we're talking about 2011 now. And, I was at smaller galleries. It was just after the GFC too. So that was a really interesting time to go into business as an artist. No one was buying anything. So you actually didn't really feel bad, which is quite good.
It's a bit like that now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's gone back to that.
Yeah, so that was an interesting time. So what we did do together was we started amassing equipment, which was quite smart. And we needed certain gear and we'd do the research together. But what we did do was we bought it separately, but we could use each other. So I bought a diamond saw. She bought a reciprolap, which is a flat grinding thing. I bought a linisher. She bought something else. It was really good. So then when it came time to set my own studio up, I did have a bit of stuff. I still didn't have a kiln or anything like that. So by this stage, my husband and I had moved out to Ohopo on the outskirts of Hamilton, and we had a property big enough that we could put an extra building on. And we decided to bite the bullet and build a studio. So it was like a 56 square metre space, and that was good. The idea behind that space was to be big enough for me to run classes because I didn't have a name. I still had to make a living somehow. I would run classes. I would do my work. It would happen. We'd make a way for it to happen. And, Mandy, the building was finished. I didn't yet have a kiln, and I walked in there and went, holy heck, I've got to make some work and pay for this.
Yeah.
I literally flipped and went.
Which can be a good catalyst.
And it was, because what had happened for the previous 12 months was I'd put teaching on the back burner. I'd started to build up quite a good following at doing weekend workshops, and they would always fill up. But I hadn't done that for a year or so because we had a family member not very well, and we just needed to look after him. So that just went on the quiet, and we were building the studio. And then it was like, okay, I've got to do something now. So I put it out there that I was running courses again, and they were just full. And it was great because I had money coming in and I could get practicing again.
And how great that you were filling the classes, because filling classes is not always easy. And glass casting is not your average
No, but everybody
craft.
wants to do it.
Really?
It's amazing how many people want to do it. Potters want to try it because they want to know what it's about. Bronze casters want to do it. Jewellery makers, anybody that likes 3D, that people just find it absolutely fascinating. It always amazes me, the people that come out of the woodwork that want to learn.
That's really interesting. It is a fascinating process.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's quite a sort of specialised, art form in a way.
It's pretty difficult to go home and set up yourself.
So it's surprising that people actually want to learn it, because it's expensive and you need expensive big material, big equipment.
Yeah, you do. But I guess people came along, and I made my workshops accessible so that people could return. And I think that was key. So they would come and they would return. I had a returners course, and I had the same students coming for up to 4 years.
So that was their making when they came to class.
And they would fly in from Wellington and Christchurch.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then use your equipment.
Use my equipment, use me.
Yeah.
Because I'd be on hand to say, this is how we need to make this mould, and make their works a success, really. So.
And how did you actually build up that sort of clientele?
The clientele. Well, I just kept, I've always had websites. So I was talking to someone this morning, and I had my first website built in 2004. Which is quite early days. It was pretty static. It does help that I do have a brother who's in the industry. And I think I'm on my 5th website now in 20 years.
Really?
Because they have to just keep...
They have to be current.
They have to be current, absolutely, and needs have changed. So at one point, it was all about teaching. That was the majority, I didn't have a name yet as a maker. People didn't know my style. People didn't walk into a gallery and ask for a die tocker. That was those days. They hadn't arrived yet. I hadn't found, I felt like I hadn't found my thing at that point.
But you had with your teaching, obviously.
Yeah, and the teaching was really good from that point of view because it reaffirms what you know.
Yeah.
And you're learning from students as well.
And
you're
making
and you're getting to
connections.
problem solve around all these difficult objects that they want to make.
Yeah.
So I was kind of learning through the pieces they wanted to make, which was very cool. So I taught for a number of years in that studio, and at that time I just built up my practice, just slowly getting out there and trying different galleries and, you know, just taking opportunities when people emailed and said, would you be part of this show, and would you do this, would you do that? And
how did you, I mean, we'll get to talking about your actual practice as well shortly, but how did you make those initial connections with galleries?
Oh, a whole range of ways. I guess I did 3 arts business courses before I took the plunge to become an artist. So the first one was the one I did in the UK, and I was like, I'm not ready for this. We did a really good paper on arts business at university, and that really delved into the dealer galleries. We would go out to the galleries and talk to the galleries.
Really?
It was an incredible paper.
And that business side of fine art is not really looked at so much now.
No, which I think is a real shame.
It is.
So I did that then. And then the when I decided to start working with Colleen and give it a go, there was an organisation in Hamilton called Arts Waikato, and they did a fabulous arts biz course, and it was one Saturday a month for 10 months. And then they would have a different facilitator come in and talk on a different topic.
Wow.
So you covered everything from marketing to how to approach a gallery, all of those sort of things. So I had some really good tools in the toolbox. But that's not to say that I didn't make a whole lot of mistakes along the way. And I just tried new things. And I guess I made the mistake of being in too many places and not really consciously thinking, where does my work fit and what do I want for my work? I think at the beginning you feel like you can't be too picky, you know, whereas for me now it's all about relationships. That's bottom line.
So you're looking to have the connection with the gallerist.
Totally, because they're an extension of my practice. They've got to love what I do and they've got to want to sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got to want to talk about it and be interested if I send them an email with some news or, yeah. So I know that's what I'm after now, but back in the early days it wasn't. It was be like, oh, people will go to that beach and they'll shop at that gallery, so I better be in that gallery. But actually it just ended up, to be honest, with a whole lot of admin.
Yeah.
Right? Too few pieces, but out at a lot of places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that can be logistically a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was, going back to your question of how did I go about finding the galleries, I literally would look on a map. You know, I would Google, I would look while I was on holiday, I would talk to other artists. The galleries would come to me and I'd say yes before I ever went to visit them. Now I would never, in my wildest dreams, ever put my work in anywhere I haven't visited.
So
it's just not an option.
You want to make sure that you connect with the people and
the space.
And the space. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who are you with now?
So I've got 5 galleries that represent myself at the moment. So I've got Gallery 33 in Wanaka, Gallery De Novo in Dunedin, Church House Gallery in Motueka, Black Door Gallery in Parnell, and Art Form in Matakana.
That seems like a really beautiful spread across New Zealand.
One of the strategies that I do have is I have some city galleries and I have some holiday destinations. And that works quite well because at different times of the year, they have different markets.
And different clientele.
People love to buy art when they're on holiday. In fact, that's when I buy all my art.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to be in the space just because it's at the holiday destination if it's not right for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Often they're not the right space.
It's a lovely collection of galleries. How do you find managing showing your work in 5 spaces?
If I can't keep up with the stock, I would drop a gallery. I've found that that's my happy number. I've also got a gallery space in next to my studio at home. So I cover the Waikato region. Yeah. But that's a small space, and really it's almost like a stock room. I like to have one of everything there. So, and not every gallery has all my work because it doesn't necessarily suit all of those galleries. So certain galleries like different types of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got quite a varied range and
that
different
works quite well,
series
doesn't
and
it?
different price points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not too bad. And I'm just really upfront and honest. If they say to me, hey, we sold that, we want another one, I'm just like, look, it's going to be 2 weeks for that, but I can give you this. Or, it's going to be, that's 6 weeks off at the moment, or, yeah.
Yeah, and that goes down again to having that right relationship so that you can say that you're not feeling sort of totally bound by their demands.
And I want them to know that they can rely on me and that I can always supply.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of artists realise that if they were out there in the corporate world, they would be referred to as a supplier, because that is actually what we are.
True.
So, we need to supply.
Yeah.
That's our job.
That's actually an interesting way of looking at it. And you were saying earlier that you do kind of see yourself as a businesswoman as well as an artist in some way. You didn't actually say that, but is that how you see yourself and your practice? A big part of it is running the business.
I quite often say to people, I'm in the business of being an artist. Because without the business, I could make glass, right? But I need to sell it to make another one. That's the bottom line.
And especially with such expensive materials.
Yeah. And I'm making it for people. The product that I'm making is an emotional connection. That's actually what I'm making. It just happens to be glass. Yeah. And
it must be beautiful to be able to make pieces like that people connect to so deeply.
Yeah, they do connect. It's really funny when you have some moments. Like that's what I love about having a small gallery space at home, because, there's been times where I've just left a couple to think about something, and one particular couple, and I've been just in the workshop, and then I just hear them giggling going, shall we really buy it?
Really?
And it's, and it's a big purchase for them. It's really, but the fact that it affects them that much.
And you've got a narrative when you're creating the work, but I guess so many people have their own narrative they bring to the work.
Which I'm totally happy for them to bring to the work. Which is lovely,
yeah.
Yeah, I say that I start the story, but I don't end the story. Yeah.
They finish it.
I
love that. Yeah.
Brilliant. And those figurative pieces, they have quite emotive titles, truly, deeply, team of two.
Yeah. Yeah. So the title they're connecting to the title as well as the work in a way.
Yeah, totally.
I find that sometimes when you look at a work and then you connect on a certain level, and then you look at the title, and then that can be the sort of final deep connection.
Yeah.
When you have that other little prompt, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to really talk about your practice. Can you describe your work? I know it is that's a big one. And then let's start talking about some of your series.
Okay. So I would describe my work as sculptural objects that capture colour and flow and movement within that. Because a big part of my signature is the mixing of colour and the shifting from one to another. I do work with figures, and I also do much more abstracted work that I call my fluid series. And they are a real deep dive into suspension of colour within the pieces. So glass flows in the kiln and it flows into the artwork, and I'm trying to choose that point at which I want it to stop, which is virtually impossible. Really, the kiln switch is often that does that. But I am placing colour so that it flows, and gravity will only take it so far. And those pieces are just so much fun to open because I kind of know what I'm going to get, but I don't really. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So they're slightly more abstract.
They're much more of they start with a geometric form, so I might have a real strong curve, but then I've got all these loose, organic, fluid sections, which are really hard to describe.
There's quite a lot of space in those ones, isn't there?
There is a lot of space. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess maybe as we talk about your different works, it'd be nice to talk about the process too in those ones. So how do you actually create the space?
So the spaces are I'm trying to think if someone can't see them. So we're just going to encourage everybody to go and have a look, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely.
At the fluid.
And the blog post, your blog post will have images
Yes.
of the work and within the series.
Yeah. So those spaces are really important because that refers to probably my first interest, which comes back to the figurative work, which is negative space. So it's about fluidity and movement, and I definitely have my signature way of finishing it. Let me tell you a story about how I came to make those works, because that'll help. So in 2018, I had this wonderful opportunity to go to Argentina with my husband on a work trip. Gone all that way, so we better do something else. So I found a great big glacier to go and visit. So we flew 3 hours south and had a few days and went out to Preto Moreno Glacier. And ice is about as close as you're going to get to glass in nature. And it was just amazing. Like that day I just treasure. And I came back going, I've got to make ice. I've got to make that. And it's not a new topic for glass artists. Colleen was pretty driven by ice, and she'd been to Antarctica twice. And I came back and I carved these things to look like ice cliffs, and I was like, ooh. They're just so contrived. And then I'm driving down the expressway one day and I just went, oh my God, ice equals ice. I'm verbally saying this out loud. And I'm going, I've got to get home. I've got to try this. And I was remembering my mum playing with my kids and making ice candles. So you get the old milk carton, the 1 litre milk carton, and you put a wick up through the middle of it, and you put ice cubes into it, and you colour your wax, and you pour it in. And then when you rip off that carton, you've left with this rectangular tall shape with all these crevices from the ice when it melts away.
Right.
So I'm like,
Yes.
So I come racing home, get the ice out of the freezer, chuck it into a silicone rubber pan, heat up some wax, throw it on top, wait for it to melt, get it out and go, oh, it's but ugly. It's awful. What was I thinking? And then I was like, there's got to be something. And then I just spied the gas torch. So I get the gas torch and I start heating the wax, and it starts dripping away. And I'm going, okay, I can carve the wax with heat. So that is a simplified version of how it's done. I mean, the scale of the objects is big, so they've become more complicated as to how I pack the ice in there, where I put it, how I melt it. You know, I went through so much experimentation of just completely losing pieces, because you can get a bit carried away with that heat torch and then a big blob just falls out and you've lost your work.
Yeah.
What I was talking about earlier was about, you know, how some works just sit on the shelf for a while. Those works take a long time for me to make, and they do sit around because sometimes they're just a bit ugly. You know, now at this point, remember, there's no pretty glass colours. It's chocolate brown wax. It's pretty uninspiring. And usually while I'm forming it, the idea will come of how I want it to colour it, because that'll relate to the form that I'm making. And that usually my inspiration for those is painters. So I might be thinking about how a painter moves colour. Yeah. Looking at glass artists is pretty much doesn't work for me. It's not, because there's not a lot of people mixing colour like I do. So it just, yeah, I just love watching painters. And maybe that taps into my connection with Jenny de Groot. I don't know.
Yes,
I think it
absolutely
probably does.
And we'll talk about Jenny a bit later.
So that's the process behind. We've only made a wax model at this point. Like that's 1/10 of the process. Around that wax model, I need to make a refractory mould. So that's a mould that's going to go into the kiln, and that's made out of a plaster silica mix and some other additives depending on how strong, weak I need it to be. For those fluid series, I've developed quite a unique way of creating those moulds, because they are not easy to make. They're very physical and hard, and I had a lot of trouble with a lot of glass leaking and moulds breaking open. But I've finally developed a system, which is part of the reason for working in series, because when you repeat a process, then you get to refine it. If you don't repeat it and you jump from style to style, you don't get to hone your craft. So
and you can't reuse the wax cast.
No, it's lost wax casting, so the wax is gone. And these are very much one-off pieces.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You don't get another one like it. I couldn't if I tried.
No.
So I need to make a mould around that. So that's, just think plaster in Paris, like when you're a kid and you're slapping it on, but a little bit more skillfully. And when that's set, then I have a steaming unit that sits underneath the mould, and the wax is steamed out, and that leaves a negative space for that mould. Then that mould goes into the kiln, and the glass sits in a crucible above it, and the crucible is a terracotta flower pot. And then the glass colour, the flow of how it works, depends on how I stack it in that pot.
Okay.
So I can get different, I can get glass looking different by several different factors. Might be the shape of the pot, so a more upright pot or a rounded pot. The distance from the mould to the pouring hole, that also adds a factor, because it'll mix more. Sometimes I'll put granules into the mould, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll sprinkle them through that pot. There's just, But
it is a bit like abstract painting, I suppose, because you can't exactly determine the final result.
No.
But you have enough experience.
I get it, just,
to know.
Yeah, and I'm usually, what I do is I'll go back and I'm looking at past works. And I go, okay, I want something like that for this one, but maybe a bit like that one as well.
Do you make notes?
Oh. I could talk about notes for ages. I have notebooks for Africa.
But you'd kind of need that to record the process.
Yeah.
Especially if you're wanting to repeat something
So
similar.
every firing has a log. So that's the kiln log notebook. Every piece has a, we call it the order book, which is a bit of a funny book. But that has a sketch of the artwork and then the details of what colours and where they go. And sometimes it'll have a diagram if it's a really complicated pot packing. So all that information is in that book. And then you've got the sketchbook for the ideas.
And design.
Yep. And then you've got the technical notes. And then you've got the business notebook.
Wow. I've touched on something here.
yeah, I've told you, I like notebooks. So I learnt very early on that loose pieces of paper were not my friend. So everything is in books. And then my diary is also a notebook. I don't follow a diary. I just have a A4 false gap spiral bound notebook. And that has the week set out on it. So there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday down the left, and then all the notes on the right of all the things I want to achieve. And then every conversation I have with a person on the phone goes in that notebook in order, and they are like the diarised, I can just find anything. Yeah, so there's another notebook.
That's brilliant. But that's how
my notebook
like to work.
system works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find it's very helpful to see something written or to have actually written it and then to see something written and then kind of cross it off. I find that very
I'm very much
useful.
a list person.
Yeah.
But like the business notebook, for example, that's been going since 2013, and I just spent a bit of time back in that notebook last week, and that's where I'll write just notes on where I'm at, what changes I think I'm going to make, a new direction. So and that includes all the numbers when I'm plotting out, is it worth making this piece? Do I want to approach that gallery? So it's really interesting going back and looking at the things that I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
And they haven't eventuated, and some have. And the other thing that I found that was gold in that book is that's where I'll write a debrief after every exhibition. So those debriefs really help you go forward for the next exhibition, because you go, okay, what was good? What wasn't? What would I do again? What wouldn't I? Do I want to revisit that idea?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then it also makes that exhibition, it's part of your learning and part of your journey.
Totally.
Instead of just a sort of an event that, comes and goes.
Yeah.
It's really quite informative.
Yeah, so that the business notebook I probably only look at twice a year, but it just stays in the drawer and it's still there and it's all in the one place.
That's a good idea. Yeah. So that, I guess you might have different audiences in some ways for your different series. That does feel quite abstract and organic, and it's very much got a sense of water.
Yes. Even though it started out from ice, a lot of people will want to see waves, and I don't really mind what people see. As far as I'm concerned, it's an exploration of colour and suspension of glass flow, but if it resonates with somebody because it makes them think of their mother's garden, no problem with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's not a sticking point for me, what somebody finds in my work. And they are at the higher end of my scale of price point because they're such one-off works and they can take weeks and weeks and weeks to make.
And they're quite large.
They fire in the kiln. They're 2 weeks minimum for a start.
Really?
So that's 2 weeks of power in the kiln. And then who knows how long a wax, I could be working full-time on a wax for 2 days for one of those larger works. I mean, it doesn't usually work like that. I'll be revisiting in between other work. But I do like having smaller pieces to work on as well as bigger pieces, because some days you're just not physically in the zone to lug around a big piece of work.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I love the way with those pieces, probably all your pieces, that sometimes there's a roughness in the sides, and then sometimes even within one piece is a very sort of shiny, crystal clear, beautiful, smooth, polished side.
Yeah, all by design.
Yeah,
because I think it's all about glass refraction. So for me, a piece of cast glass is about, they're a vessel for light, even though they're not a vessel. It's about refraction. How much light can you get in and then bounce off in other ways? So texture can let you do that. Transparency can let more light in. So I really so the bottoms of my pieces are really important because that's the leaping off point for the light ray. So I always highly polish the base if I can, depending on the artwork. And then that's also, you'll see some of those fluid works are sitting in stainless steel cradles to elevate them, and that's about the light to be able to get all around the whole piece.
Yeah.
But I do like contrast between a controlled form and then a chaotic area, or a real textural and then a real shiny.
Yeah, I love that contrast.
Yeah. And I guess my overarching desire is to make work that people walk into a room, they see, they're drawn towards it, brings them closer. That's the point of it. I want people to wonder.
Yeah. And your work definitely does that. And it's not just the object, it's what the object is creating almost around it, with the reflections and the light.
Well, that's the magic of glass.
Beautiful.
Is that it just looks different every season at different times of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always moving in a way, isn't it? Yeah. So going on to other parts of your practice, just from your website, you have about 8 or 10
series. Because I can't help myself.
Yeah, which is amazing. I mean, you must be so prolific in the way that you work.
I do have to sometimes stop myself from creating new pieces, and they still all come back to a sense of the things that interest me, which are relationships, negative space, who are we, where are we, where's our place in this world, that's where most of the work comes from. So like I touched on before, the series are a way to hone your craft. When I started at university and I started making those abstracted figures, and then I became quite quick at carving them. And then when I started selling work in New Zealand, I was making these little abstracted figures, and each one was individually carved. And I could make the numbers work, but it was getting harder and harder. And I was like, how's anybody going to make a living at this? And then I started realizing you had to, the best way to do that is to repeat components, and at a certain price point, it's okay to make more than one of some things. But at the same time, I don't let myself get tired. So I have closed series before, much to people's dismay.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And there'll probably be some people listening going, yeah, I really wanted one of Dice Paper People and I never got one. But I put out a call for last orders, and that's it. And it's not, I don't think it's fair to the people that have already bought them that I keep making them forever and ever and ever. And also I'm a great believer in that if you don't make space for new things, you can't do it. So you have to close some avenues off to create some space. For new avenues to
That's
arrive.
right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I've done that with a few series, or I've started things and thought this just isn't true to me.
And how can it become not true to you?
Or I've discovered perhaps not true to me is not the way to describe it. So I made this series for a group show in Hamilton. I think it was 2019. And I made these, they were called High Homes, and they were very popular, real fast. And there's a few other artists making glass houses in New Zealand, and I thought, I don't need to make them. And also, I loved making them. They were good, but I thought, all I'm going to do with this series is make more in different colours. They're not going to teach me anything. They're not.
And you weren't tempted because they were selling so well?
It was almost like they were too easy.
Really?
It was almost like I'm not going to get challenged by these works. I've done it. I absolutely loved them and people loved them.
And it wasn't, I mean, you weren't thinking, well, maybe this won't challenge me, but they are selling, so I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, I thought about it. But I also thought, well, hang on a minute, there's another particularly well-known artist doing houses, and I don't want to be seen as, treading on her toes either. That's not the right thing to do. They were very different. I think they were different enough for both to be on the market, but I just thought, I've got other things. I don't need to go there.
Yeah. And it's about sort of what you can actually manage. It's like having lots of different galleries, having lots of different series that other people connect to. Different people connect to different series, I presume. And it's just managing that, and then what you're actually wanting to create yourself. Yeah,
and I'm probably at that point now where I'm definitely not emerging anymore, Mandy, I suppose.
No, you've passed that.
But I'm really now starting to think, what is it that I want to make? And what I want to make now is the best work I can possibly make to leave behind. So that means some things have to go.
Yeah.
Which is why the business notebook came out again.
Yes. That is brilliant.
Because I needed to reevaluate where I was at.
Yeah.
And what I could let go of.
So we've talked about your process, the first stages of your process. What happens when you actually bring the work out of the kiln?
It's like Christmas every day.
I can imagine. I can really imagine.
So especially with those big one-off works where I've mixed colour and you get that goosebump moment. It's pretty special.
How good
they
is
don't
that?
all come out like that, but, and some of them are slow burners. They take a while for me to fall in love with, and other ones I'm just instant. I know. So when it comes out of the kiln, the mould is then broken away. So we've lost the wax because we steamed it out of that mould, and then we've broken the mould away. We recover what we can of that mould material, so that we can use that on subsequent castings as well. And then starts the laborious polishing process. So picture me in gumboots, a big full milking apron, a raincoat over top of that, earmuffs, safety glasses.
Really?
Yep. And I've got a booth. We call it the lemonade stand because it kind of looks like you could drive it to the side of the road and sell lemonade from it. But actually, I just open up the Perspex doors, and in there is a drainage tray, and I put the artwork in there on a rubber mat, and I've got an angle grinder which is water fed, and I have all these diamond polishing pads, and I just start.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, before I get to that, I've sawn off the waste glass because there's always waste glass with my diamond saw. So that's a really important tool in my toolkit, the saw, because every piece gets put through that.
And why is there waste glass?
Because that's like a safety net for if I get the glass flow wrong, and also the bottom of the casting's not that attractive. So I saw that off. Okay. And we just use that glass to test for other works.
And some of your work does just sit on a table. So how do you get that so perfectly balanced?
So if I've got a gentle curve and it's sitting on a table, I grind the curve and then flatten that flat spot. I never used to do that. I used to have the flat spot and then try and fix the curve.
That would be hard.
Well, it looks clunky. So that's a learning that I've learnt through repetition and series to make it sit delicately, create the curve, get a beautiful grinding momentum, shape that curve. So all the highly polished faces on my pieces are taken back with 7 different diamond grits, from a coarse grind right down to a fine grind. And then they go through a polish dip process, and then there's another polishing process after that.
Wow.
So when they come out of the kiln, we're probably about 50% there. And then after they're completed, then we've got photography, and then each one has a purpose-built crate, which has 2 other people involved in that process.
Yes, I've seen your crates. They're beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was very early on. I decided these works needed good packaging. I also wanted to make it really easy for my galleries, so I just factor in the price. And it also means that I'm employing other people who just happen to be my friends, but they're experienced makers.
So they're like beautiful wooden boxes, aren't
Beautiful wooden boxes. So I've got my friend Richard who makes the boxes, the crates, and he used to work in the museum environment as well, so he understands how skids work, what they need to be, how we can make them as light as possible. And then they get sent off to my good friends Em and Steph at Framing House, and they fit them out with foam and Tyvek, which is archival material. So if the glass goes up in an attic for 25 years and doesn't get seen, it'll still come out pristine.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's taken Em and I many, many years to refine the interior of those boxes. Basically, we've been trying to get rid of instructions to make them foolproof.
And then you package those boxes up if you're couriering them somewhere?
If it's a cardboard one, because we have some die-cut cardboard ones for the lighter works, they'll get packaged up. But if it's a crate, they've got handles on, they just go like that.
Really?
They're ready to go on a courier to England.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just put stickers on the outside.
Stickers on the outside, job done.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then the person who's bought it has this amazing
so if they move house
to fit it in.
And it's purposely fitted, bespoke fitting.
And it's really very professional and very sort of, that's like the final finish.
Yeah. I want people to have that wow factor. I call it the Apple factor. You know, like when you get your new iPhone and you take it out of the box. It's
Yeah.
like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Packaging is
Yeah,
important.
that packaging, it's part of it. I still like a handcrafted kind of side to it, you know?
Yeah, and it really fits the work so beautifully. And even looking at the work inside those boxes, all sort of snuggled in with the foam, and that's beautiful in itself.
Well, it's just about how can you elevate your work. And I encourage all artists, I think they should think about that. I mean, when a box arrives with foam chips and it's a hassle to get it out and, you know, you're screwing up your face already before you've got it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you want your client to be smiling, going, ooh, this is exciting.
And beautiful.
Yeah. Yes, they have to store their box. There is that about it. But hey, and so as far as I'm concerned, it's part of the artwork. It goes with the artwork. Yeah, it's not a return thing. It's,
I think that's a lovely addition.
So photography, packaging, get it on the website. Perhaps it's going off to an exhibition. Perhaps it's just sitting for a while or waiting for a competition, you know? Yeah. So,
Or it's a commission.
So I do quite a few commissions. They're an interesting thing as a cast glass artist because I'm not working with the direct material, unlike a painter. So it's, you know, I can't always guarantee they can have just that. So the way I've learnt to get around that is I will quite often make 2 versions. And then also that covers off the fact that I get to fulfill the commission slot, but I get to also make some stock. And then I can give the client a choice of 2. And that makes it a little bit easier, especially when I'm doing works with really complicated colour pours and I just can't guarantee it's going to be exactly like what they want. And I really enjoy the commission process because you quite often get to see the site or photos of where it's going to go. They've selected your work because they like what you're doing.
And they connect with a particular series, I presume?
Yeah, they've connected with a series or they've come to me, like I'm working on one at the moment and he's come to me and he said, I want a special piece for my wife. It's her 60th birthday. It's also our 45th wedding anniversary. I know them personally, so I know what they're like. They're really mushy people. And instantly, as soon as he started talking, I was like, well, you want first kiss. And he's like, we still talk about our first kiss.
Oh, bless.
Yeah, so, you know, instant connection.
And I think all of your work is like that. It really lends itself to a very important occasion or, you know, something very special to be celebrated or, you know, something to kind of connect to or communicate.
Yeah, especially those figurative pieces. Yeah. It's interesting because I didn't start making works with 2 figures on until 2018. They all had 1 figure before then. And people used to see my work and go, oh, they're quite introspective. They're quite dark. And then I just decided to have a show with 2 figures. Actually, that was not long after I met Jenny de Groot, and our relationship was going really well, and we were both going leaps and bounds from working together. And also I'd brought my husband Mike into the business to help me. I hadn't bought him, he was always there on the side, but I'd asked him to have more of a be the business head with me. And I entitled that show It's Better Together.
So good.
Yeah, and I started putting 2 figures together and thought, why hadn't I done this before?
Yeah, and people connected more to that?
People connected more to that. So it then has shifted into these small series that have definitely become quite sought after for wedding gifts and anniversary gifts and engagement gifts and, you know, birthdays and, you know, that
which
sort
is
of
great.
thing. Which is cool.
It's a good market for you.
There's always going to be relationships, isn't there? So, and then I've moved on with a recent series called Elevated Conversations, and that's more about when you go on those road trips or you climb up a mountain, or in my case, and my husband's bike up a mountain, and you get to that point and you just have a deeper connection because you've gotten away from society. And those figures are not joined. They're actually separate, because when you're out in the elements, you're not deeply connected to one another. You're enjoying it together, but you're just connecting to this environment. So I really like those pieces because the figures are engaging with each other, but with the elements, the structures that they're on.
Yeah. And you can really get a sense of that sort of out in nature in a big sort of expansive place.
Well, I'm glad, because that's what I've tried to do.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah. So that stemmed out of our trip. We biked the old Ghost Road, and I just came back and made those works.
Wow.
Yeah, and called it Elevated Conversations.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And then the process, I guess, is similar to what you've talked about, but you're thinking about colour in different ways.
Yeah, I was really tuning into alpine colours and that sort of stuff. And there's still the glass flow, but it's not as busy. It's softer because it's more harmonious, but the texture's bigger because of the outdoor.
Yeah.
And the contrasts and the tension and the form of the piece is probably bigger, like this quite cantilever type structures that the figures are sitting on.
Yeah.
Which is my mountain.
Yes. Yeah, and you can see that. But it feels quite mathematical sometimes. I mean, the whole sort of way it feels like it's balancing, and the way it's connecting sometimes to other forms. It has a mathematicalness about it.
Yeah. Yeah, yes.
Do you know what I mean?
And to me, I'm trying to put tension in there. Like I'm trying to make things look like they're going to fall over, but they're not.
Yeah.
And then that creates a little bit of tension, which is just a slight discomfort, but at the same time, the colours are beautiful and soft, so you want to look in. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they're so beautiful and striking. And you mentioned your friend Jenny de Groot, who was on the podcast a few episodes ago, and she's an abstract painter. So if anyone listening has not listened to that episode, you should check that out as well. And you've got a really unique, amazing friendship and sort of art relationship. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we do. So Jenny and I have these Monday morning chats. We chat every Monday and have a phone meeting. And so we've got very different practices. I'm a glassmaker. She's a painter. But we are each other's support network in all things business and in all things around, I guess, that sits on the outside of the actual art making. I can't talk to her about painting because I don't know anything about it, and same about glass making, but we will critique each other's work. So we do that a little bit. So we'll pop over to each other's studio if we're gathering a body of work together. We have had a few exhibitions together, but that's probably not the glue that binds us. And I think the reason our relationship works so well is when there's a few things going on. We weren't actually friends before we started this. We just fell into it. She threw a question at me, why don't we have a show together? And it just sat with me for a bit, and I thought, yeah, okay. So that's when we did a show. And then after that, we just stayed in contact. And before you knew it, this is what we were doing. And
there's certain people like that you just have that kind of relationship with. I find that with Tanya Blong.
Right.
Her and I, we always end up just getting into crazy deep conversations, often about art.
Yeah.
But it's just that and we're quite different too now as artists, but you have that connection, and it's such a fantastic relationship to have.
It's so valuable. I cannot express how much value it adds to both of our practices. I think we would be in quite different spaces. It's not like we're in each other's pockets, and we do completely different things, and we don't seek each other's approval for decisions, but we do ask what each other thinks, and we do have different paths. But yeah, it's been gold. It's been very special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can get so much from that, and sometimes your partner is not the right person to have those conversations with.
No, and I also think if you can, and I'm addressing this to other artists, try and find somebody that is doing something different to you. I think that's quite important. Don't be in the same medium because you could get a little bit competitive. And if you can help each other out by introducing each other to different galleries or different people, different audiences, then that's just beneficial for both of you, but you're not competing because one's a painter and one's a glassmaker in our case.
That's right.
So we learnt very quick that with that first exhibition, this is gold because we've got 2 crossovers of audience here.
Yeah.
This is like...
Yes.
Yeah.
That's smart. But also your work does go so beautifully together.
Yeah, we've done some pretty special shows, and we've tried some different and fun approaches to exhibitions. We had this wonderful exhibition in 2016 where we tried to make the gallery look more like a domestic space. And so we said, we don't want any plinths, thank you, and we don't want any of your furniture. We're bringing our own. And we sourced all the second-hand furniture and painted it all white.
Nice.
It was
my God.
very cool. So we
had
sideboards, we had cabinets, we had white armchairs, a white coffee table, a white dining table with chairs around so that when they came and met the artist, you could sit down and have a chat.
That's
a white
such a
vase
good
of
idea.
flowers.
And that wasn't in your own space. That was in a gallery
That was
space.
in a gallery.
And the gallerists were happy, obviously.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Nikki Hastings McFall.
Yeah, she's
beautiful
a clever
work. Oh my God,
amazing.
the standard lamps that were painted white with the white lays.
Yes,
on the lampshades. Oh,
yes.
I love that work.
Yeah. So I used some of those old-fashioned plant stands and lamp stands and put little turntables on the top and had things on that.
I love that idea.
Yeah, it was quite quirky and cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then we did another one down in Gallery de Novo in Dunedin where we sourced a few wooden ladders and we painted those white and then bridged the gap with, a long tabletop and put the glasswork on that.
Beautiful.
So we'd like pushing the barrow out and thinking about the show as a whole.
And gallerists are open to that kind of...
Well, the ones we have approached.
Creativity.
Every gallery would be different. I mean, but those ones at that time were certainly happy. We make it easy for them.
And they trust you, obviously.
Yeah, and that comes down to your relationship with your gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that relationship with Jenny is it's just gold. That's just simply what it is.
And I love the way that you have that sort of, Monday morning you have the meeting come hell or high water. Like it's a part of your week. It's a part of your business. It's a part of what you do. Yep. And you really prioritise it, which is so smart.
Yeah. I mean, I now have my gallery open on Mondays, 10 till 3, but it's at 10 o'clock because I need to have this chat with Jenny first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And usually they last about an hour. Yeah, it'll be a big one on Monday after we have a debrief about this.
Yes. Oh, my God, you can say terrible things. That Mandy girl, oh, my God. And how do you find the opening up your own little studio space or your little gallery space?
Well, this is a new thing for me. I've only done it the last month or so, and the reason I decided to do it was because I'm actually quite well known outside of Cambridge, but not within Cambridge. And I do get a lot of out-of-town visitors passing through and making an appointment to come and see me, but I just realised that there's a whole lot more people that, cast glass is unusual. It's got to start with an education. Yeah.
And I think it's particularly with that process and that medium, it is a great conversation to have, the actual process and for them to see how it's made and the tools that are used and that kind of thing. So it makes sense. Yeah.
So I only do it one day a week and other time I'm just open when people want to make an appointment. Other than that, it's a designated gallery space, which just has my office in the corner and I don't really have to do anything because it's always set up. And Monday's pretty much my admin day. So I just make sure I'm doing clean activities and not noisy tasks.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and it works. And perhaps Monday isn't a perfect day, but it's a perfect day for me. So that's the day.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's the day.
And how is your husband helping out with business?
Well, I get to run everything by him. Or I do run everything by him. I didn't used to, and then that just became too overwhelming. It was just like I didn't have a sounding board. I didn't have so he's really, really good. And of course he works in business. So he's really good at forecasting the economy and seeing things I don't see, the wider, bigger picture out there in the world, what's going on. So we'll think forward. Is it worth having an exhibition this year? What type of exhibition? How much input shall I put into it? How much money shall we sink into it? Is it going to work? So he's really good for that side of it. He doesn't get really involved in what I make. But
that's so good to have.
But he does come out to the workshop and do things like, I've got some certain pieces which he's just amazing on the diamond saw and I'm just useless. So he does that, and he also is really handy with the tools. So he's built my benches. And
that's so good.
So he's a good fix-it man for all those things which I really need. So he's got that support.
That's great. And I talk to quite a lot of artists who have thoughts about having a business mentor and think it would be a good thing to have, but don't actually action it because sometimes it feels too expensive to actually invest.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is hard. I mean, you're lucky you've got a partner who has those skills.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter that he's not in the art industry.
No.
That's not the important bit. It's just about the questioning. And of course, he's got a diploma in business management, so he's done marketing. He understands how we've got to create desire and all of that sort of stuff. So we'll come back to some of those basics. Yeah.
And you do seem to do really well with the way you get your work out there. I mean, I think you are quite very well known artist in New Zealand, and you've built that from what you're making, but also how you present yourself and how you present your work.
Yeah, I think I've just tried to be the best I can in every aspect of it. I don't want the business side to let down what people think about the art side. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If somebody's going to email me for a commission, I want them to be happy with that process all the way along. So a quick email to say, hey, I'm really sorry, but something's come up and it's going to be 2 weeks later than I said, but 6 weeks before it's going to be 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Goes a long way.
Absolutely.
And it's simple.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
And I found that with my own business that sometimes even though it might actually be a negative conversation you're having to have, if you give them a call and give them that personal connection and contact, then often you actually end up with another supporter.
Yeah, that's right. And they've just appreciated your honesty. Yeah. And I'll also never take on a commission that I don't think I can do. Like, that's just, I used to way back, when you said yes to everything. But now it's, if it doesn't sit right, it doesn't sit right.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to get to that point, isn't it, in your career where you've learned all those things through your journey and just now you know what's going to work for you.
Now I know time's getting on, but there's one other person because now I'm just demonstrating that really Tocker Glass is pretty much a team. It's not actually me. So I have a studio assistant as well. And I have done since, probably 8 years plus now. But my current assistant, who I've had for a couple of years, is Grace Carson, and she's also my photographer. And this is another amazing relationship because we can be making the work and thinking about how we're going to photograph it. We can have those discussions about colour. She's started to get more in tune with the glass as her technical skills has come up. And so that's really awesome too. So she just works with me a couple of days a week and she pretty much assists with all the grunt work and all the shit jobs. Sorry, Grace, but
yeah,
you get all the shit jobs.
The stuff that you don't want to do. Yeah.
If I don't have to do it, then there's plenty I can do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way.
And it's giving you more time to make.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
I still work on the creative days, like the wax modelling and all that sort of stuff. I'll work on my own on those days. And then, because I guess glass casting is broken down into creative period and then this just grungy making period. Right? And then, yeah.
And then Christmas time.
And then Christmas time. Yeah. So I do let her have a lot of Christmas times because that's her favourite part of the job.
It's just such a great part of that type of art making, isn't it? It's that sort of anticipation.
Yeah.
Would really keep driving you, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got her in the workshop with me as well, which is awesome.
I think that's probably a big part of your success is that you've been able to kind of spread that load so that you can continue to make and have these 5 galleries.
Well, yeah, I think, and doing those business courses and working out what your weaknesses and strengths are.
Yeah.
And working out what you do and don't want to do.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't do woodwork, so why would I make crates?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do glasswork. Yeah, so I always look at things in the terms of, can I make a piece of glass and make more money than it would cost for me to pay someone to make that? That's,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's really important.
Yeah, so if I can make glass, I'll make glass. I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
And pay someone else to do the other stuff.
I had a business mentor early on in my business career, and he said the same thing. You know, you give away what you don't want to do or what you're not very good at, which at the time feels like, oh my God, I can't afford to pay people to do some of my job. But actually it makes you more productive, or, you know, is better for your business in the big sort of scheme of things.
Yeah, and you'll get a better product.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to design the best business card, right, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Let somebody else who does that for a job do
That's
that well.
right. But I think it is hard sometimes for artists to bring in other people.
Well, but especially if you're a very clever person that has a lot of skills and you can do all of those things. I could probably teach myself to take photos of my glass. They would be nowhere near as good as Grace's, and it would take me 3 times as long. So why would I bother? And I don't enjoy it. But I'm still hands-on with her at photography time. And we do it together and we enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
You've still got input into that part of the business.
Yeah, and she wants me to have input into that.
That's important, I think.
Yeah.
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 So we could actually probably talk for another couple of days. You know, I'm sure there's so many other things you'd like to say, but we are aware of the timing. So we will get on to the questions. Or is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I am ready for the question.
Okay, question time. What would you say to your younger artistic self?
I would say you need to ask experienced practitioners for advice, but you need to think about how you ask them. Put a lot of thought into those questions as to what you want to get back. I did an assignment at university and we had to contact a glass artist. And this is confession time. And I rang Anne Robinson in New Zealand from Melbourne. And if anybody knows about cast glass, they know Anne Robinson. And my questions were far too broad. They were broad and they were stupid, pretty much. And I just didn't really give enough thought to what I wanted back. And I guess I was just awestruck the fact that she would actually accept my phone call. But in the end, she was a little bit frustrated, I think, and said, you got to work it out for yourself.
Yeah.
So really, yes, ask me questions. I'm inviting you to ask me questions, people, but think about those questions, you know? Yeah, it's really important.
And what would you say is the most challenging aspect of being an artist?
Well, for me, as a glass caster, it would have to be my body. So it's physically demanding. I am just 3 months post-back surgery, my second one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We haven't even talked about that, Mandy. We're not going there.
Goodness.
So, yeah. So I've got some weaknesses in my body that really I just have to overcome, which I can do. But definitely for me, it's the physical limitations of I want to make big stuff. And sometimes it's not so easy.
So you are kind of adjusting what you make to what you feel capable of tackling?
At the moment I am, yeah. And I'm just building back up because I'm down to lifting only certain things at the moment.
But it is good in your practice that you could still be satisfying all your needs as an artist, but maybe making things smaller.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, which is good.
And limitations sometimes offer the best opportunities. You know,
yeah,
that's a whole nother topic. Better move on.
I'll have to get you back in a few years and we can revisit some of these ideas. And why do you make the kind of work you make? And I wonder why I don't know if this is part of the same question, but why at age 18 you became so enamoured with glass?
Well, I reckon if you talk to most people who work in glass, people get obsessed with it pretty quick, and it just hooks you in and you can't get out. So there's that side of it. But for me, I do what I do because it's actually the dream job for me. Every day is different because there's so many parts to my process. So I love that about it. I love that there's a whole lot of different skills used, you know, a lot of techniques and I love that it's hands-on. Yeah. So, yeah, it just drives me I just feel so blessed to be able to walk to my studio every day and do what I do.
And to be loving it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another question people often ask. Does it still have the same magic now that you've turned it into a business and you're having to make a living from it? But it does.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
You can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll retire.
No, you shouldn't.
I don't know, not in that capacity.
No.
You know, maybe the work will get smaller or maybe I'll go back to teaching. You know?
But you'll always be doing something, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't believe in retirement.
Oh, me neither. I can't. There's so much to do.
Yeah, I agree. And where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
I always see myself making the best work I can at the time. So hopefully that'll just keep getting better and better. Not necessarily bigger and bigger. Big isn't it?
No.
It's just better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine that you will keep adding to your series and just keep evolving and learning.
I might drop a few off, Mandy.
Yeah, that's okay.
I might need to make some space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can see that your love of learning has really sort of contributed to your journey and the person you are and the artist you are.
Yeah, I'd say it fuels it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always something to be learned from glass. Throws curveballs.
And I love the connection of you taking 5 art subjects all the way back at high school and enjoying all those different processes and how now your practice has all of those elements all the way back from high school in some ways.
It does. It does.
Which is pretty cool.
Yep. Yep. And I'm even going back to night class at the moment to learn jewellery making again.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you can make some nice jewellery with glass.
I know.
Oh, my God.
But you know what? I'm trying really hard to keep it a hobby.
Good luck with that.
I'm trying to switch off the business head and just enjoy learning the skills.
Yeah. Oh, well, it could become another series.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Oh, well, with that, we will sign off. But thank you very, very much for being on the podcast, Di. I've loved talking to you. You are such an amazing woman with such an incredible practice, and I love your approach to business. And I'm sure it would have been really inspiring for everybody listening. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mandy. And I hope you have enjoyed listening, people.